Hello, 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 and welcome. Tasha here. I hope that you're having a lovely Sunday afternoon. I want to say thank you to all of our guests that are joining and also to all of our guests that see the replay afterwards. If you are here watching the replay, please drop a message down and type replay. Let me know that you're here after the fact, and I'm going to try and get back to every one of your messages, every one of your comments. I would like to know, what do you usually do on a Sunday? So if you tend to, I don't know, like Sundays, most people have the day off of work. Not everyone. My darling Jesus is currently at work, and so he gets home a little later. So it's just me for now. But I'm really, really curious. What's something that you like to do on a Sunday? Do you like to read a book? Do you like to go for a walk in the park? Yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you usually do on a Sunday. Now, as you probably are aware, the topic of today is hay fever, and so many of us have allergies at this time of year, and that's typically because of all the gorgeous cherry blossoms that are out and about. I've had hay fever for a very long time. I've suffered from allergies, and let me know also in the comments, are you somebody that tends to suffer from allergies? Do you tend to get hay fever at this time of year? If I look outside of my window right now, there's literally seeds flying around. I had some seeds just literally come into the living room, and they are absolutely everywhere. And it's funny because I wear glasses, right? And so it's funny because as I'm walking through the street, sometimes I feel like these are like my shield or my goggles to keep me protected, so that they don't actually just jam into my eyes. But I've also got, I've also got people that are around me that are just like, oh my goodness, I'm really, really suffering with hay fever. And it takes me back actually, particularly to the time when I was a teenager, doing my GCSEs in London. And I had horrible, horrible allergies. It was a situation where I was trying to get my GCSE exams done, and my eyes were streaming. They were so itchy. I was actually stressed about achieving well on my exams because my hay fever was just so strong. And yeah, so if you suffer also from hay fever, if you suffer from allergies at this time of year, so right now, today is April 13th, let me know in the comments, do you suffer from hay fever, or does anybody in your family? And yeah, it's something that I've had a challenge with for such a long time. In this video, I'm not only sharing my personal story, but I'm also going to share some tips at the end. We're just going to have a little short live stream, and then at the end I'm going to tell you what it is that I use, and it helps me a hell of a lot. Okay, so just to backtrack, I've experienced hay fever on several different continents, and I've noticed changes depending on where I am. And so just to take you through a little bit of my personal experience. So in London, England, it was one of the worst experiences I've had with hay fever. Reason being that I was trying to get things done, and my mum was giving me medicine. She was giving me, specifically, it was homeopathic. She was purchasing homeopathic drops that I was having to take as a form of medicine, let's say, and they didn't really do very much for my symptoms. I had it really, 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 really strong. So sneezing, I actually brought my little souvenir here from Japan, which is kind of cute. A reflection of when you're blowing your nose. A reminder that sometimes the cause of it is actually the pollen. So I would always have to have a tissue with me. I'd always be like scratching my eyes. It was absolutely horrible. And also, yeah, nose running, constantly sneezing. And then I felt like I also had brain fog, like I just couldn't focus properly. And it's worse in my case when you live in a city like London and then you're surrounded by parks. So you've got the compilation of the traffic, the pollution, plus the parks generating all of the pollen. And initially I was getting it quite strong in June. Now, as I got older, I moved to Canada and my symptoms were not quite as strong. Every spring, the hay fever that I experienced wasn't quite as intense. Let me know also in the comments where you're from. I can see that we have a couple of guests here. I'd love to know in the comments which continent are you from, and on a scale of, let's say, 0 to 10, how strong would you say the people's hay fever generally tends to be, particularly if you're living with somebody that suffers with hay fever or you yourself get it? Right now, I have it, and I would say that mine is probably a 1 out of 10, which is absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Okay, so from Canada, symptoms not too strong. I'm not sure if that was simply because the trees were not, the type of pollen that was being generated just wasn't attacking my system. I say attacking my system, but actually hay fever is a condition where your body actually kind of sends its defense. How can I explain this well? Your body thinks it's being attacked, and so it begins sending its troops into your defense. However, pollen isn't actually dangerous for your body, and so it's a misguided or misreading of your body, thinking that it needs to protect itself, and so you produce all of these symptoms like itchy eyes and runny nose, whereas it's not really a big deal. It's similar to when you sneeze, when you look at the sun. Like some people, if you look at the sun and you go achoo, it's like your body having a slight nervous reaction to it. Not nervous, but allergic, almost like an allergic reaction or defense mechanism. But in fact, looking momentarily on a bright day toward the sun is not actually putting your body in danger. That now brings me to when I was living in Korea. Now in Korea, I actually had no allergy whatsoever. Like I lived there a total of 7 years, and in those 7 years I didn't experience hay fever, and I could walk through the trees of cherry blossoms and I had no issue whatsoever. So that, for me, that was really, really curious, and I began to realize, oh my goodness, so are you saying that in some countries I may not have hay fever at all? While I was there, I did actually travel back to Europe, and I visited Rome. And in Rome I had the most horrific hay fever in I think it was June. It was either May or June. And I was walking, I think it was on the Aventine or the Palatine Hill in downtown Rome. And of course, when I go to Rome, I like to go and see the archaeological ruins. I love to go and see all of the places which have lots of natural beauty, and there's lots of grass, there's lots of trees, and basically everything that that perpetuates the symptoms of hay fever. So it was so terrible that I vowed to never return to Rome ever again in springtime. But now that I'm in Portugal, so things have changed again, and so it's a really interesting reflection for me to see that depending on where you are, you actually have a different reaction to the pollen. Obviously, there are different factors at play, and if anybody attending or anybody here for the replay after the fact can explain a little more in detail what exactly is going on with our bodies in terms of our reaction to pollen, that would be fantastic. I'm not a hay fever expert, but I definitely can share my own experience and story of how it's actually changed in relation to where I am. So in terms of how I deal with it, so as I've mentioned already, and this is something that I'd love for you to drop in the comments, so how do you deal with the allergies? Do you take a particular medicine? Is there something that you do that really helps? So I'm going to share 3 things, 3 things that have in varied degrees helped. Number one is something that I mentioned earlier, and that was essentially taking medicine, taking the homeopathic remedies that my mum would insist that I take. And at that time, I was quite young, and I was so full of hay fever. It was actually overwhelming. It was horrible. I could barely focus on my exams. It was really, really bad. In the next case, I discovered something else that really works. Now, I don't know how many of you are lucky enough to have something called the herpes virus. Now, this sounds absolutely terrible, but I get a herpes on my lip every now and then, and it happens if I'm stressed, if I'm run down. And I have a particular method that I use that can help me avert actually getting one. Now, I know that I'm going on a tangent, but please stay with me on this. What happens is, for those people that don't get cold sores or the herpes virus on your lip, so this is essentially what happens. So you get a tingling on your lip, and then you're like, oh my goodness, a cold sore could be coming. And so you basically have a very short space of time in which, or at least this is my experience, in which to actually try and make sure that it doesn't actually come up. And this is what I do, is the minute I notice it approaching, I will just immediately say, okay, I really need to chill. If I've got adrenaline in my body, I need to relax, I need to calm down. And doing that will just help, just really reducing all of those chemicals that I feel actually help speed up that process of getting a cold sore to manifest. And I have managed several times strategically to not get a cold sore even when one was on its way, by just literally chilling out, calming down and relaxing. Now, I use that same strategy if I have hay fever. I'm just like, okay, I feel absolutely like my system is just going nuts. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to like lie down, sit down, relax, chill out, focus on my breathing, and basically try to do almost nothing. literally, I'll only do the bare minimum. Like, say for example, if I'm working, I'll like continue speaking and using my brain, but I will just try to avoid using my limbs. Now, and actually that really, really helps. Avoid movement. So avoiding movement in my case really, really helps with reducing the symptoms of hay fever and pollen allergies. Please drop your suggestions for our guests that are watching the video now, and also for the guests that are going to see the replay after the fact. I'd love to know what you recommend if you are a hay fever sufferer, or anybody in your family, and you have a little bit of knowledge about how to deal with this. Now, the third thing, so I've mentioned the homeopathic medicine, which my mum insisted on giving me when I was a teenager, which really didn't work in my case. 2, just chilling out, relaxing, which is the same strategy that I use if I've got a herpes or cold sore virus that's trying to appear on my lip. Just chill the hell out. The last thing is the stem cell activation, these patches that I'm using right here. So this is when I've said earlier at the beginning of the video that right now my allergy is roughly about a 1 out of 10 if I gave it a rating. So this is the symptom that I'm getting right now, and I usually in Europe my allergies tend to be quite severe. Is that I get itchy eyes from time to time, so I'll probably rub my eyes several times a day. And that's it. That's the only symptoms that I've had. And there is pollen absolutely everywhere right now. And I in terms of setting, I happen to be in the countryside too. So, yeah, I have to say that this is probably the lightest experience that I've had with dealing with hay fever in Europe, while living in Europe. And it's thanks to these stem cell patches, which I'm a huge fan of, and I'm going to say that I have actually been taking them in advance. Like, I've been using them for about 8 months now, and I think that they're supporting my system to basically help my body probably understand itself a bit better and not be on the defense in terms of trying to protect me from this so-called let's say predator that's trying to attack my system. So I'm going to wrap up in a moment. I want to say thank you to everybody that has watched and that has joined us today. I want to say thank you to everybody that's here for the replay. I'd also like to encourage you to share this video with anybody that you think might benefit from what I've shared, and I want to thank you in advance too. And I'm going to reply to all of your comments below. Please reach out to me, send me a message. If you want to know more about any of the different methods that I've used, any of the 3 methods that I've been talking about with regard to the homeopathic medicine my mum insisted that I take, or what it is that I do to relax and chill, exactly my specific method, or you want to know more about the stem cell activation that I really feel is helping me just relax and not go through the horrible symptoms that I'm seeing other people having to deal with right now, just send me a comment down below, send me a message and just say interested, and I will get back to you and connect with you directly. Thanks once again for joining this live stream, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.